Ever stop to think about where the letters you're using to text your friends actually came from? Well, the answer takes us thousands of years back in time to an ancient civilization of, honestly, super traders who, from this tiny little strip of land by the sea, ended up changing the world forever. And that's really the big question we're tackling. How did a group of people, thousands of years ago, come up with something so revolutionary that it's literally right in front of your eyes at this very second? Let's find out. All right, so first things first, we need to get a handle on where the Phoenicians even came from. Their whole story really kicks off with a massive challenge: their geography. So, picture this. The Phoenician homeland, which is basically modern-day Lebanon, was this super narrow piece of land. On one side, you've got these steep mountains blocking them in, and on the other, just the endless Mediterranean Sea. Now, this spot gave them one amazing resource: these huge forests full of strong cedar trees, but not a lot of room for much else. So, what do you do when you can't really expand sideways? You have to think differently. The Phoenicians looked out at the sea and didn't see a barrier. They saw a highway to the entire world. And to travel on that highway, well, they were going to need the best vehicles you could possibly imagine. Yeah, so that geographical squeeze, it actually forced them to become brilliant innovators. They didn't just build boats. They engineered what were by far the most advanced ships in the ancient world. So what was their secret? Well, for starters, they used that incredible cedar wood from their own mountains. Their ships were huge, some stretching up to 70 feet long. And they had different models, you know? They had these wide, sturdy cargo ships for hauling goods, and then they had sleek, fast warships with battering rams on the front. But the real game changer, it wasn't just the wood, it was how they put it all together. So instead of just nailing planks of wood side by side, they used this genius bit of engineering called a mortise and tenon joint. The easiest way to think of it is like ancient Legos. You have a carved-out tab on one piece of wood, that's the tenon, and it fits perfectly into a hole, the mortise, on another piece. This locked them together and created an incredibly strong frame. And because of this technique, their ships were unbelievably strong and durable. Seriously, they could survive these long, really difficult journeys across the open ocean that other ships from that time, well, they just couldn't handle. Now, having a great ship is one thing, but you have to know where you're going, right? Most sailors back then were terrified of losing sight of land, but not the Phoenicians. They completely mastered navigating by the stars, especially the North Star. They got so good at it, in fact, that other ancient cultures actually started calling it the Phoenician Star. This skill let them sail straight across the open ocean, which opened up trade routes nobody else would even dare to try. Okay, so you've got the best ships and the best navigators. What's next? You do business. The Phoenicians didn't build a giant empire by conquering land. They built it by connecting pretty much the entire known world through trade. 12,000. Just think about that number for a second. What could it possibly mean? I'll give you a hint. It has to do with their most famous, most luxurious, and most valuable trade good. That's right, it took 12,000 tiny Murex sea snails to produce enough of their legendary Tyrian purple dye for just a single robe. This dye was incredibly vibrant, and get this, it never faded. In fact, it actually got brighter with sunlight. It was so expensive and so hard to make that pretty much only kings and emperors could afford it. And that, right there, is why we still associate the color purple with royalty today. The Phoenicians were basically the ultimate middlemen of the Mediterranean. They'd ship out their own goods, like that awesome cedar wood, beautiful glass, and of course those famous purple fabrics, and in return, they'd bring back raw materials from all over the place. We're talking copper from Cyprus, silver from Spain, ivory from Africa, and even tin from all the way over in Britain. And to manage this huge network, they set up trading posts and colonies all around the Mediterranean. The most famous one, by far, was Carthage in North Africa. It was in the perfect spot to control the trade routes, and it grew so rich and powerful that it eventually became an even bigger deal than the cities it came from back home. So, trying to run a massive international business empire like this meant a ton of paperwork. But the old writing systems were super slow and complicated, and a problem this big demanded an equally brilliant solution. Before the Phoenicians, writing systems like Egyptian hieroglyphs were incredibly complex. A single picture could stand for a whole word or an idea, which meant you had to memorize thousands of them. The Phoenician system was totally revolutionary because it was based on sounds. Each of their 22 simple symbols stood for just one sound. And the impact of this was just huge. Their alphabet was so simple that almost anybody could learn it. Suddenly, reading and writing wasn't just for a handful of professional scribes anymore.
Regular merchants and traders could now easily keep records, write up contracts, and send messages across their huge network. This really truly changed everything.
So we've seen their incredible ships, their massive trade network, and their game-changing writing system. But how does this all connect back to you, right here, right now? Let's bring it all home.
I mean, their legacy is enormous. They basically gave us the concept of a global trade network, connecting different cultures with goods and ideas. They pioneered navigation techniques that opened up the world's oceans, and they created the blueprint for powerful cities built on commerce. But their greatest gift? Well, that was the alphabet, without a doubt.
You see, the ancient Greeks saw how brilliant the Phoenician system was. They adopted it, made a few tweaks like adding symbols for vowel sounds, and that system was eventually passed on to the Romans and then spread through Europe, leading right down to the English alphabet we all use today. The very letters on this screen are direct descendants of an invention created by ancient traders who just needed a better way to keep track of their business. So the next time you write something down, just take a second and remember the Phoenicians. It kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other parts of our everyday lives have these incredible ancient stories hidden inside them, just waiting for us to notice?